In this video, I'm going to remind you about what the measures of central tendency are and how to find them. Let me first start by explaining to you that we really won't even use, or the only time you're going to find measures of central tendency is when you're working with univariate data. Now, what is univariate data? Univariate data is just one variable data. One variable is involved. One type of data is involved. One variable data is how I would interpret univariate data. What do I mean? I mean something like maybe if somebody were measuring the speed of a car as it passes through an intersection. So I'm going to write speed of cars. That would be an example. Or maybe somebody's tallying how many siblings every member of a class has, or something like that. Number of siblings. It doesn't always have to be a number per se, although you will tally and get a quantity. Maybe we're talking about favorite ice cream flavors or something like that. So I'm going to write that down. Favorite ice cream flavors. All right, that's what univariate data is. Now, what you're going to do with that data is you're going to calculate three different values. The three values you might calculate would be the mean, the median, and the mode. Those are considered the measures of central tendency. The mean, hopefully you're recalling this, is just the average. This is the average of the set of numbers. The median is the middle number. The median is the number in the middle. Middle number. Now, I have to caution you because I'm saying the middle number, but it's the middle number when the numbers are listed in order. So I'm going to say when the numbers are in order. They could be ascending or descending order, going up or going down. The mode is the most often occurring number, the number that occurs the most. The number, and I'm going to write here number or numbers because sometimes you'll have more than one mode. The number or numbers that occur the most in the data set. All right, it would help to take a look at examples. So let's take a look at this example that I've got set up. I'm asking you to consider these test scores. I've got a set of test scores that we're going to calculate the mean, the average, the median, that's the middle number, and the mode. So let's start with putting the numbers in order. That's going to be your most important task at the beginning. So since I'm going to be putting them in order, I think I might find the median first. So I'm going to look at my list of data. I'm going to pick out the smallest number, and then I'm going to start listing out my numbers going from that number up. So let's see, I'm scanning the numbers. I've got a 77 in this top row, a 73. Looks like my smallest number is a 73, so I'm going to start with a 73. Then I've got a 77, two 77s. I'm going to list them both. Any other numbers in the 70s? No. Next number in the 80s. Looks like an 81. Anything else in the 80s? Yes, we've got 89, 85. We've got several. So let's go, looks like 85 might be the next number. 85, I've got 1, 2, 3 85s. I'm feeling a mode coming on right here. 85. Oh, but look, I've got some 89s. In fact, 1, 2, 3 89s. 1, 2, 3 89s. Did I cross them all out? I'm trying to keep track here. Next number would be a 93. Looks like I've got two 93s. 93, 93. And then after that, two 97s. The class did well on that test is what I'm thinking right now. And 100. Sweet. It's always nice when a student gets 100%. Okay, how many numbers do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I've got 15 numbers. So since there's an odd number of numbers, then I should be able to find a number that's right smack in the middle. 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. So if I count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers, then 7.5 would be the next number in the list. Let me show you counting from the bottom. A lot of students will count both ways. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 from the top. I end on 85. I've got my finger on 89 because that's the next number. Or I can count from the bottom up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When I look at it that way, I see that this number is right smack in the middle. This number is considered my median. I'm going to write middle number. So our median right now is an 89. An 89%, if those are percents, which they likely are. Okay, I've listed the numbers. Now, to find the mode, I think that's maybe the next easiest thing, because now that I've listed the numbers, I can see which ones are occurring the most often. And you see, or maybe heard when I was tallying them or writing them down, I have 3 85s, but I also have 3 89s. Now, there are some other repetitions. I've got 2 77s, a couple of 93s, 97s. But remember, the mode is the number that occurs the most often. And since I have two numbers that are occurring 3 times, which is the most often seen number, then I have to list both of those numbers as modes. So in this case, our mode is going to be 85 and 89. You can write an and symbol, you can put a comma in between. Regardless, we're going to have 2 modes. In this set of data, we might say that the data is bimodal. That means it has 2 modes. If it only has 1 mode, we're going to call it unimodal, and sometimes the data may not have a mode. So if no numbers repeat, then you'll just write no mode right there. All right, the mean, I saved it for last because I think it takes the most work. To find the mean, you're going to take all the numbers and you're going to add them up and divide by how many numbers you have. So I'm going to write that down, add the numbers, and divide by how many numbers you have, the number of numbers. That's the way I always say it. I hope that makes sense to you. Add the numbers and then divide by the number of numbers. Do you remember when I counted up how many numbers there were? We had 15. So I'm going to write that down. 15 numbers. So I will be dividing by 15. Now, I could list them out and add them by hand, but I have my calculator handy, so I'm going to use my calculator. You can double check my calculation if you have a calculator handy. Otherwise, you can trust me, right? Let's see here. 2. Here we go. 93, 89, 77, 85. And look, I'm just listing them. I was thinking I was doing something else. Let me start over. 93 plus 89 plus 77 plus 85 plus 97 plus 89 plus 85 plus 81 plus 73 plus 93 plus 97 plus 100 plus 89 plus 77 plus 85. Now, I should double check to make sure all the numbers I listed are correct, so I'm going to go back up and just double check. 93, 89, 77, 85, 97. I can't forward through that. I don't know why I can't do that. It must be because it's an older calculator. All right, I have the sum 1310, 1,310, that I'm going to divide by 15, and I'm going to say that my average, my mean, is an 87.3. Okay, my mean is an 87, and did you see how I rounded that 0.3333 repeating to a 0.3? You might want to ask your teacher what she wants you to round to. However, what I tend to do is I will record my mean as it looks most like the values in my data set. Since all of the values in my data set are all whole numbers, I might say that my mean is a whole number. And so I'm going to say my mean is approximately 87. So I have a mean of 87 for this data set, a median of 89, a middle number of 89, and I have 2 modes. My modes are 85 and 89. Now, that is how you find the mean, the median, and the mode. It's probably the most basic way to find it, but I want to show you a couple other things that you might want to know. The first is, when we look at this data, as far as listing it out like I did here, that's probably the crudest way to do it. It's not wrong by any stretch of the imagination, but I just want to show you another method or another thought, some other viewpoint you might have. So you see what I've done here? I've created a dot plot of those data points. In other words, I took each one of the scores. Let me fold this paper so you can see it. I took these scores right here and I plotted each one of those scores as a dot on this number line. So I have a 93, an 89, I'm not going to go through the list, but a 70, 77 right there. Let's look at something like this. Let's look at the mode. Do you see how my mode, I have 3 85s and I have 3 89s. The reason I'm saying it's kind of important or maybe helpful to look at it in a dot plot format is because you see those are the ones with the most dots, right? The median, if you remember, I listed out all of my numbers in order and I kind of had to tally or just keep track when I was writing them down. But if I had plotted them, you see how they would have been listed out in order. And if I was going to find the middle, I could have counted. I've seen students do this before. Count from the front and go top down, or count from the back, or I should say, and count from the back, from the last data point, and go backwards, you know, from bottom up. So if I counted like that, one from the end, another from the end, and I'm just keeping track. I'm by pointing. I'm here, here, there, there, here, here. Do you see how that leaves one dot left over? This right here is my median. So my median is an 89. Okay, so 89 represents two different values, the mode and the median. That's kind of interesting. Where is the mean in this set? Well, just looking at the dots, you can kind of visualize where maybe the average dots should be. And according to our calculation, it should be at 87. So where is 87 in this dot plot? 85, 86, 87. Here's an 87 right here. There's no dot here, but what I'm saying is this is like the average spot for all of the dots combined, so to speak. So this would be considered my median. Sorry, my mean. So my mean is an 87. My median is an 89. And my mode, remember there were two, 85 and 89. Now, that really does it in terms of how to find the mean, median, and mode, but I just gotta tell you something else. The reason that we call these the measures of central tendency is this. If all three of the measures, and this is happening right now, if all three measures, the mean, the median, and the mode, are kind of hovering or clustered or centralized around one number. Now, they're not all the same number, but you see how they're all in this space or in this range from 85 to 89? If all of your values, the mean, median, mode, are clustered together, that means that those are good descriptors of your data set. Hence the reason we call them measures of central tendency. But I want to point out something. If one of the measures is off, if one of these is like not very close to the others, then it just means your data set, I'm not saying it's not perfect, it just means your data set is skewed in some way. It might mean that there's an outlier. So let me show you what I mean by that in terms of how our data would be affected. If a student had scored a 20% in this data set. So in other words, we have all these data, all these scores. Most of the students in this group, most of the students were in the 80s and 90s, right? There were a couple 70s, but if there was a student who, I don't know, maybe was absent, didn't study at all, didn't understand the topic at all, and scored a 20%, that's going to skew my data. It's going to alter some of these numbers. And so I just want you to see what it means when they get altered and why maybe using the mean, median, mode is not always the best descriptor of a set of data. So I'm going to show you this on my calculator because it's going to be a little faster. I want to point out, I'm going to do the best I can here to show you what I'm pressing so that you can follow my lead if you have a graphing calculator handy. Remember when I calculated the mean and the median and the mode, and I said that it was kind of a crude way to do it? writing my numbers out in order, there's nothing wrong with that. I just want to show you there's a much easier, handier way of doing it on your calculator. So let's take a look. What you're going to do is you're going to press the Stat button. When you press the Stat button, you're going to have a list of options. What I first want to do is edit my list. Edit is like where I enter all the data. So I just pressed enter, and you see I have a blank list waiting for me to enter data. So here I go. I'm going to enter it just like it was on my piece of paper. I had a 93. I'm going to press enter. An 89, enter. I'm going to keep going. 85, 97, 89, 85, 81, 73, 93, 97, 100, 89, 77, 85. Now, a good thing to do when you're entering data in your calculator is double check to make sure all your data entries are correct. This is what I was starting to do a little while ago, but I wasn't in this stat mode. I can scroll up and down and double check my numbers. Another thing I can pay attention to is what number I'm on. Do you remember how I had 15 pieces of data in my data set? If I scroll down one more space, see how it's blank? So I have 15 numbers in my data set. Now let me have my calculator find the mean and median for me. It won't find the mode for me, but I'll show you how you'll figure that out. So we're going to press Stat again. Then this time I'm going to arrow over to Calc. I'm going to have my calculator calculate some one variable statistics for me. Remember early in the video I said something about univariate data, one variable data. So I'm going to press enter. My calculator is going to ask me where to get the list from. This is a default L sub 1. If you remember, I had multiple lists that I could have put data into, but I'm just going to leave that alone. I'm going to press enter 3 times. And what my calculator is going to do is going to give me a whole lot of statistics that I'm not prepared to talk about right now. It'd be too complicated. The very first one that you see an X with a bar over it. That's the symbol for mean. So you see how the mean came out to an 87.3 right there. The median, I'm going to scroll down. See the N equals 15. That tells me the number of numbers is 15. I'm going to scroll down. And then if I keep scrolling, I'm going to see MED, that stands for median, is 89. But there's nothing that tells me the mode. No big deal. I want to show you this cool feature about your calculator. If you press Stat and then ask your calculator to sort your data for you, you're going to arrow down. You can sort it in ascending order or descending order. I'm going to choose A, enter. The calculator is waiting for me to tell it what list to sort, so I'm going to press second 1, because if you look above the 1 in blue, you see L1, and then enter. It says it did it for me. Not that I don't trust it, but I want to see it. So I'm going to press Stat to see it, press Edit, and you see how my numbers in my list are in order now. And so I can scroll and very quickly find what my mode is. I have, remember, 3 85s, an 89, an 89, 3 89s. Are you with me? So this is a handy way to find that. But where I was going a few minutes ago was, what if a student scored a 30? So I'm going to add a 30 to our data set, a 16th number, okay? So I'm adding a score, actually not a 30, let's give that student a 20. Well, I didn't give the student a 20, the student earned a 20. Okay, a 20% on this test, along with all those other scores. How does that affect my data? I'm going to press Stat. I'm going to ask my calculator to calculate my stats for me. I'm going to choose one variable stats. It is in list 1. Enter, enter, enter. And I want you to see something. You see how my mean now dropped down to an 83? I'm going to write that. My mean drops to an 83 with that score of 20. The mean dropped down to an 83. Now, the median, the middle number, notice is an 87, so it's still kind of close to the one a minute ago, just with one more data set, one more piece. The mode, I can't see it here. Remember, I have to press Stat and Edit and look, but the mode didn't change. I still have 385s and I still have 389, so I'm going to write 85 and 89. So what I wanted to point out to you is if you have an outlier, see how these three values are kind of clustered together? That one's a little bit low compared to what it was before. An outlier in a set of data is going to affect your mean. And that's just something I wanted to point out to you so you could keep it in the back of your mind if you're ever asked to analyze data and make some kind of description or talk about your data in some way. So which measure of central tendency is thrown off by an outlier? It is the mean. The mean is going to be, and I'm using this word significantly. It may not be too significant. Significantly different or thrown off or significantly away from the median and the mode. So if there's no outlier, then these measures of central tendency should be pretty close together, pretty centralized. Okay, I hope that helps you remember or understand how to find the mean, the median, and the mode, the measures of central tendency.